Hi, my name is Christine. Today I'm joined by my brother Stewart here, and we've got the wonderful Tommy McNee with us as well as a guest today. Welcome to our podcast, Unmuzzled Conversations. Today is episode 6, and we're going to be talking about the 70s. So I'm going to start off by mentioning something that was a huge event that happened in Glasgow in the 70s, and that was the IoKs Disaster. I don't know much about it, so I'm going to ask Tommy if he can give us any information about what actually happened.
Well, I actually wasn't there at the time, and I normally would have been.
Yeah.
But as you know, the so many people were killed. It was because they were rushing out at the end, and it was. There were so many crammed on the slope of the steps that it was just a bit of a disaster where it happened. And as I say, I happened to be, I was playing a gig in Dumfries, and so we left Glasgow early, and we did the gig and came back, and had come back in the early hours of the morning, and at that time I had no idea that it had happened. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I was staying in a flat quite near Ibrox, mm-hmm. which we named the Murder Clinic. As Stewart and I had gone to see this Hammer horror film just not long before that, and which was called the Murder Clinic. And the house that this had been converted into flats looked just like the set of this, with the bats flying outside, and all the what now would be illegal now was that all the floors and the ground floor, all the flats windows had iron bars.
I remember this.
I
remember that. Yeah.
So if there was a fire and you were trapped, you were trapped. There was no way out.
Absolutely.
It was definitely illegal. So I had gone there and back and away to bed and woken up on the Sunday morning. Well, later on the Sunday morning, we had one telephone for all the flats that were in there, and the phone was ringing, ring all the time. And my mother and my sister were actually at Ibrox running the pie stall.
Oh, right.
Right, the pie and Bovril stall. At the back of I think it was at the Copeland Road end. And my sister at that time had qualified as a nurse. Mm-hmm. And she was just trained and ended up giving CPR and that down in the pitch with people at Jock Stein next to her and all helping the police.
Terrible thing.
And my mother had done a first aid course, and they were actually involved in trying to help people.
And was it them on the phone trying to contact you to make sure you were all right?
They were phone because they knew that they expected that I would have been there.
So if it hadn't been for that gig,
they had phoned the morgue, and there were people there who may have fitted my description.
Oh my goodness, right? How frightening!
So they were phone, and it went, and I was knacked, right, for the gig, and I just left. Somebody else can answer it, and it kept going until I actually answered it. Everyone must have been out because on the Sunday, because I answered it, and I think it was about 2:00 in the afternoon when I answered the telephone, and it was my mother being relieved.
Of course,
that I was
you were all right.
And she said, and I said, no, I was really.
And you wouldn't know anything about it because you had been sleeping.
Why are you phoning me? Because I actually fallen out with her. When I say I was way up this flat, when I say that's me going, and I thought it was an intrusion.
How dare she?
I think it's worthwhile just saying what actually happened. And it was the New Year game for 1971. It was a Saturday. It might have been the first or the second. In those days, it was almost always the first, unless it was a Sunday. But like Tommy, I should have been there, but I was doing something else. But what had happened, it was a huge crowd. There was no tickets. You just paid to get in. There's maybe 70,000, 80,000 people there at Ibrox. But it was a nothing each. The game was going nothing each, and Celtic scored with about 5 minutes to go, and maybe even less than that. And a lot of the Rangers supporters just left and thought, that's it, we're off, we're leaving, and went down the stairs. Then almost immediately afterwards, Rangers scored. I think it was Colin Steen scored the equalisers. So the people walking down the stairs had realised a goal had been scored or something dramatic had happened, and some of them stopped and some of them came up the stairs.
Yeah.
So it was this huge tumult of people all mixing in, and then the disaster happened. But that was what led to it.
Yeah. So it was a sad
And
day
it was also
for
the beginning.
Rangers.
It was also the beginning of all-seated stadiums, because after that, Rangers were the first to put an all-seater stand in and get rid of the terracings.
All the safety measures that started
from that.
There was a big review from then on, and everything was much better organised than it was before.
Such a shame that something so sad had to happen, though, for that. But that ultimately is what happens in life, isn't it? That these things happen. So a sad day for Rangers.
At least lessons were learned.
Yes.
Quite often, as you say, the famous things, they say lessons will be learned from this. And they're not.
That's true, Tommy. That
Quite
is very
often,
true.
And you're actually shouting at the telly saying, "No, you won't."
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
So it's good that something good has come out of it.
Yeah. So the other thing that happened in Glasgow in the 70s was that the Kingston Bridge was opened, the Alhambra Theatre closed. And that there was a cleansing strike that went on for 9 weeks. And in the end, the army were called in to take away the rubbish. You mentioned something about rats.
In fact, it was because, as you can imagine, the rat population went mental, because it was permanent food, for them there. And I remember some of the soldiers, I don't know if it was official or unofficial, they get wee badges with rats on them.
Oh, really?
I think it was armbands or something, and Scotties are really funny. And, something that's horrible that they were having to do, which they shouldn't have had to do. But they did do it, and they had these rat images, logos, wearing them on their uniforms.
So the other thing to mention was that, Paddy's Market and the Barras were thriving at that time. I think after the 80s, would they not really start to kind of fall away a wee bit? Paddy's Market first, I think, because the Barras was going up until maybe 20 years ago.
The Barras is still going.
I know, but not the way that it was. It was a real place for people to go, and
it was interesting.
And there was a lot of that these guys selling things in that unusual way that was quite entertaining as well.
The patter was great.
Patter was brilliant.
Patter was fantastic. Yeah. Then you could just sit and watch the guy doing the I think if I remember, with a cane, a big long, just a bamboo cane, and they would sell lace curtains.
Oh, and he would hang them over the cane.
And the cane was actually it obviously genuinely cut it for this size, because see when they say, right, missus, this will right, missus, this will be brilliant, because the neighbours will be able to see, because you just know that, whatever it is, that's it, you can peek out, right, no, come in, don't let them in, and so it was in like that, and he would say all that patter, and when somebody was buying something, and they would say, how many yards, missus? Right, and they'd say, right, so it's 9 yards down there, and that cane went 1, 2, 3, 4, because it was on a roll, and it went ding, 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 ding,
clever.
Ding. So it was actually a
guy.
Measuring stick as well. But he would also say, look at that, that's
classy,
quality.
Aye.
I was there once with some friends who from out of town, who were not that keen. They were interested in the Barras, but a wee bit frightened. And I remember Jelly and I taking them in, and we were in one of the cafes there. There's these two guys, two spaced out young guys, and they had this great big bag, and they're walking up to quite openly up to every seat. There was people at every table, so there was somebody there, and he opened the bag. Want to buy a suit? And he take the suit out. Look, he opened it. Marks and Spencer's. There you are. What size are you? I got out. I said, you get any 3-button suits? Oh, they're all 2-button. I said, oh, sorry, I don't wear 2-button. Okay.
Oh my God.
Totally blatant.
Aye, absolutely. Aye.
The other thing that was happening was fairly, I think maybe for women more than men, was a kind of a breakthrough, was Provident checks coming out in the 60s and 70s, and also catalogues. And this, as far as I know, was the first time that people were able to pay things up as opposed to having to pay cash every time you bought, whether it was a piece of clothing or whatever it was. Because in those days, the catalogues weren't just for clothes. You could buy a kettle in a catalogue.
You could buy a 3-piece suite, probably.
Anything. And that, I think, was quite a breakthrough. And it's the same with the Provident checks. And I remember people saying, even to my mum, listen, I'll come round to yours on Wednesday night, the Provi man's coming, I've not got the money. And because they would come round to the house to get the physical money off you. And she would just say, I'm going to kid on, I'm no in. And would come round to my mum's and say, after an hour, I'll be away now, I can go back, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there was quite a few people came to your house on a Friday night.
And the insurance man
came. The Provi man.
Prudential.
Insurance. Yes. Right, or the co-insurance.
And the pools guy, Eddie Cairns' his dad did Vernon's pools. Right. And they did that on a Friday night.
The pools and even paid the milk. You paid the milk
on a Friday night. So that was right.
You went, because I was a milk boy when I was very young. If I was 12, I was out before school started. I was away out, with rolls and milk, and we'd heat our hands in the rolls. Now how unhygienic is that? All these wee manky guys.
Never washed for a fortnight or something.
Nothing was hygienic.
All these wee manky guys, because they used to put these.
You must have sticking in their ears and
boards of rolls, right? And they were all on top of it, and they'd come and deliver them, and you put them on top of the crates of milk, and then there would be 6 or 7 wee manky guys going, oh, that's great, because I'm frozen. Oh, great. Oh, great.
Oh, my God.
And off you went.
So that was the night when it was all happening.
So I would say a Friday night was when a lot they came to the door, and as you say, the people would avoid answering the door because he didn't have the money.
Eddie Cairns' dad told me, he was actually, I went up to see him one time, and he had been to court. I said, what you're witnessing court? He says, what happened? He says, it was Friday night, I'm up collecting the Vernon's pools, and there was this older guy, he used to wait to the very end because sit and have a couple of whiskies with him. He says, so the two of them are sitting there, and the older guy says, I can hear a noise. Can you hear a noise, Jimmy? He goes, I think it's come from your kitchen. So he walks into the kitchen, and there's a guy, he was one story up, and there was a guy standing in the windowsill outside, and he's trying to get the window open. He's trying to break into the house. And he's pulling the window, and the old guy cracks up. He goes, that bastard! And he runs, and he gets he gets a brush, and he gets a brush, and he says, he remembered. You'll tell him later. He remembered his First World War bayonet charging drill, and he charged, and he poked the guy through the glass, right through the glass, hit him in the chest, and the guy went like boof. Somebody phones the police and an ambulance, and the guy's taken away, and he broke an arm or a leg or something. But the old guy was charged. God. So Jimmy had to go up in court, and they brought the victim in, and he's in a wheelchair, and everybody's like, but he got admonished, he was warned not to do it again. But the idea of somebody just doing that, it's just brilliant. He's a guy in his 80s, never forgot his drill, his bayonet drill.
Of course, in those days in the 70s, all of us would be working. I was probably just starting my first job. So you would be chefing, or were you? Was that your first job, Tommy, or were you doing something before that?
Just for a few months. When I left school, I went to being the East End of the city. I went to a company called Sir William Arrolls, who were heavy engineering, and it was a racket.
The noise, Tommy?
The noise was unbelievable.
No ear defenders or
nothing
anything?
like that.
No,
You know, that was... and I remember coming home after my first day at work, a real work, remember those, it was a kind of, they're probably quite fashionable now. It's almost a kind of these check shirts that are out now. It's kind of heavy material, like woolly type thing.
Like a winter type thing.
Right, so, but I remember this going to school with it, but then coming home with that, and my mother saying to me, and what are you doing? And I said, I'm building the 4th road bridge, which was the job they'd put me on.
Uh-huh.
I was a plater's apprentice. I was about 3 months, and I just hated it so much. And I'd put my name in. I always fancied being a cook. I don't know why, but I just quite like it. And I put my name into this catering agency, and after about 3 months, they said there's a job for you, man. I went into that, but I hated it. I had an incident where they made this. Can you imagine a big, like a column, a huge column of steel, which is maybe about 15 yards long, column, square, about 3 feet column of heavy steel. So they built it at a right angle, and then they welded it, and they put these welding right angles welding plates in, so that it would be right at right angle. Then they welded them up into a box, and they welded all these right angles. Yeah. And then I was sent in with a hammer, right, because they just tack welded these things, and I was sent in with a hammer to just knock them all off, all these.
That was your
things.
job, Tommy?
No, they didn't need to do it. I wasn't smart enough then, right?
Yeah. Just a
didn't need to do it. Yeah. So you go in and knock all those angles off with that. It's dead easy because I just tack welded. They waited to get. I was halfway down that tube, and then about 10 guys started hammering it with hammers. Right, can you imagine the noise?
Oh my God!
I was. This is fun. It's fun. It was a joke, but then again, that's the sort of things that everybody, apprentices, or I think that had to go through everything
of course.
At that time. At some time or another.
I mean, some of the stories, Tommy, of apprentice chefs, particularly in London, where I used to hear from, in my time in hospitality. I was horrified at some of the things that the apprentices had to do. Abused a bit, but quite a lot. But as I say, all apprentices then, as I say, things are so different now. But did you imagine that now, Stuart? Apprentices.
But I don't look in that as a good old age. Yeah. I think that's horrific.
No, it was.
And you have to think that's somebody who would do that to a child. What else would they do? Yeah. I mean, I take a real dim view of that. And that's why I think, we all say people nowadays are softies and this and that. But abuse like that, I'm glad and I hope it's very much in the past. Because I saw things like that were disgusting.
Yes.
In my one in the print.
I was going to say.
I'm not even going to mention it, but totally disgusting.
Yeah.
And again, I was lucky, but I thought that shouldn't happen.
Right.
Did you get to jail for it now?
Oh,
seriously. And you'd have been in the sex offenders register for getting caught doing stuff like that.
Very abusive, and the same way. Same with the cooking as well. They were very abusive at times.
And it was just because they could.
Absolutely.
I mean, in all of those situations. So you started doing your apprenticeship in Is that what you wanted to do? See, looking back,
I just took the easy option. It wasn't it was an easy option, and especially our mum wanted me to do that. It was a compositor, and it had quite high status, but it was I shouldn't have done it. I should have stayed on at school and been something else.
Did you know what that would have been? No.
I'd like to have been a history teacher.
Yeah, you're very good.
Because I like history, and I really enjoy it. But anyway, I did. I took the easy option. It wasn't their fault. It was my fault. Because my dad was keen for me to stay on at school and go to university, but I was too lazy.
One of us to go.
But I just took the easy option. But I started a 6-year apprenticeship. I was 6 years. believe that?
A long
6 years.
time,
And then, by the time my apprenticeship was finished, all the compositors were well on their way out because a lot of the factories had closed by this time. And within 2 years of my time being out, the company that I worked for, which was huge, they get rid of all the comps. And then within another 10 years, there was hardly a comp left. And fortunately, I had got out of it. But then, you think all the wee weekly newspapers were closing down, or they were amalgamating because suddenly there was new technology and we didn't need the people to do the kind of work that was being done.
What was
well, you were lucky that you were quick to embrace the new
Well, I could see it coming, Tommy.
Well,
that's
why I'm saying to have foresight like that is good. I mean, I know that, and I'm the sort of person that always went where the wind blew. And you know, if I lost my job somewhere, if I was cooking and it didn't like it, I'd just go and see if I could find a job somewhere
very
else.
Transient, isn't
You
it?
just
People
went
constantly moving
somewhere else to try, and there was always plenty of jobs
there
in
were,
that.
There were in those days.
Whereas the as you say, all the technology was taken over, so therefore there were many jobs which were, for example, William Arrow's closed down. Whoever thought? Nobody thought that the shipbuilding and the heavy engineering would ever stop. And there's very little of that. It's all specialist stuff. So you were good. The fact that you had some foresight and was actually embraced the technology.
Did you think it was kind of like a parent? Not a pressure, but an unsaid kind of pressure that you would.
It was a pressure, but my mum and dad did in those days to get into the printing trade. You had to have somebody to speak for you.
That's right.
Otherwise, you would never get near it. You never get near the door. And my mum and dad knew somebody whose son worked in the company that I went to work for, and he spoke on my behalf. And because of that, I then got the interview. I didn't get the job, but I then got the interview, and through that, a couple of wee exams and tests, and I got the job. But I wish I had been, in those days, and I think especially especially people from our background, you would be, well, if you committed yourself and said you would do that, to leave it for any other reason than a spectacular new job, which was never going to happen, you would be deemed as a failure, and you'd let your parents down badly, and you'd let the company, you'd let everybody down.
Yes.
So despite the fact that I didn't like it, and for a lot of times I hated it, I stuck it. And
because you gave your word, and you said
I committed myself to do it, and that would be it.
Well, I was quite late, but I actually became an indentured apprentice. An indentured.
What does that mean?
Which means you were. My father had to sign the forms, and it was because it was and I had to attend catering college and all these. You had to. It was one of the few places that actually most restaurants, hotels, you just went in with but it was a gentleman's club, and it was very strictly regulated. The whole thing. It was I remember it was run by Commander McLaughlin from the Navy, and I've still got my indentured apprentice forms at home.
Oh my goodness!
With this Commander McLaughlin, ex-Navy man, and my father, as I've shown to Stewart, was an ex-Navy man.
Oh right!
He spent the whole war in the Navy, and he was, and I was actually quite old.
Apprentice?
No, because I was just coming up for 17. You're not supposed to start. You're supposed to start apprenticeship 50. Then in your 16th birthday.
Right.
Right. And I think I was actually 17, but ex-Navy man talking to each other.
That's how things were done in those days, though, isn't it?
But I had to stay with that, which I was quite glad. They had to keep me and train me for the years as an apprentice. So it was for catering and hospitality, that was quite a good thing. It was, because they didn't just. It was
kind of fly by night.
There was a contract. Yes, it was an actual contract that they had. We all had to bind. We were bound to each other. Yes, that's why you were an indentured apprentice.
Never heard of that in my life before.
Right.
There you go.
Well, that's been good for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Oh, that's.
It was. See people that went like in the 18th century and before that who went to America, Canada, went to the colonies, they would be indentured servants, which meant they would get there and, it could be terrible. Your conditions could be awful. But it was 7 years, I think, an indentured servant. So you had to stay with that employer. No, legally, you could run away if you like, but legally you were bound to work for that person or that family for the 7 years that you'd signed on for, and you couldn't leave. Legally, you couldn't leave.
So did you like it, Tommy? I hope you did.
Yes, yes.
After that,
it was a great. I was happy to get the job. I was looking forward to getting the job because I knew that I had to. That I wanted to have the qualifications rather than as well, because the experience you get, but to actually have qualifications at the end of it, which I got. Mm-hmm. So there's not enough. There is chefs that have qualifications now, especially we come out of catering college. But then there wasn't so many. It wasn't a case of you having to attend. It was basically a lot of chefs that just come and go, and it was in. You just told them. They believed you that you knew what you were doing.
Well, that's exactly how it works, to be honest.
And did you lie your way?
Still goes on today.
And still, yes.
Do you remember that the apprenticeships being something that all of your friends did, or was that the kind of way that everybody started work?
I think you find that once you go into such a place as that, which was a huge factory that I worked in, you kind of lose track of your other friends because you go from school to there, and you find that people you went to school, you don't have so much in common, and if there's a lot of boys the same age as you, a lot of them become your friends. So you tended to stay with them.
But do you remember, as people were leaving school, that other boys, your friends, were going into apprenticeships too? What kind of things were they going into?
They went into it. A lot of them became professionals into different things.
So they stayed on at school then, rather? Right.
My friends were apprentices.
Yeah.
And
I was thinking,
my school friends,
I
kept the same friends up until my early 20s. From school, we were still, and they were, one was an apprentice electrician, one was an apprentice joiner, one was an apprentice motor mechanic. Right, so there was 4 of us that sort of ran about together, and they were all apprentices because at that time the thing was you were told by your mum and dad you need to get a trade.
Yes, that's true, isn't it? That's all.
You must have a trade. So that was the thing that set you up for life.
Aye.
And it's true, it did set you up for life, providing you liked it. I mean, but I would just try to think, was that what most boys kind of get into? And probably it was apprenticeships, if you could get one. And that's what you actually did want. I remember saying to my mum, I want to be an actress. She went, oh, for fuck's sake. Never heard such fucking nonsense. You mean, what an office, like everybody else. So that's what I did. I worked in an office, and I was saying to Stuart, in those days, obviously there were no PCs and there was no internet. So you spent your whole life taking envelopes from your boss to his pal, probably organising golf days and meetings and things, and wait for an answer. To stand at the desk and wait, they write something down and give you it, and need to go back again. And the whole day was spent filing. That's what it was. But then I got the job of my dreams, which was selling outdoor girl makeup in Lewis's, and I just thought I had arrived. Nothing could be any better than this. And the first day I started working, a woman, and they were all incredibly glamorous, the women, and also there was a huge big section of wigs in those days. Eyes, and the best one was Carmen wigs. So there was all these wig lasses, incredibly glamorous women. And the first day I started, this woman came in. Oh, fuck, she looked terrible. And she was coming in like that. And she obviously was late and didn't want to get caught. Her pal went, I've got you, you're all right, it's all right. And I thought, oh, this is the bloody game for me. This is the boy for me. You can get in that wee side door. I'm saying, oh, I need to keep my eye on that side door. That's how you get in if you're late and things. And it was just wild. The women were absolutely wild in Lewis's.
And Lewis's,
and Lewis's was a fabulous shop.
Brilliant.
Do you remember the food hall in Lewis's?
I don't remember.
It was like Harrods.
Fantastic.
It was out of this world. It was incredible.
I just Lewis's, as I say, as opposed to, it's nothing to do with John Lewis.
No,
they were entirely different. A lot of people, as I say, Lucy's, which eventually became Debenhams.
It did. And of course, the other store that was going was Arnott's Simpsons.
Arnott Simpsons.
That was a big store. But that was all sort of Argyle Street, and there would be, it wasn't Fraser's, and it was called McDonald's, I think then, wasn't it? The big shop that's now Fraser's in Buchanan Street. Is that not called McDonald's at the time?
So, no.
I think so.
I think they built it.
But I'll tell you something about Lewis's, because again, this is all our yesterdays. Lewis's had a zoo at the top floor.
Did they, Tommy?
A child zoo.
Oh, goodness.
With monkeys and goats, rabbits.
Sure, that wasn't some of the employees
right.
dressing
Who knew that? Because in fact, I've got two photographs of me going to see Santa at Lewis's.
Aye, we were there, yeah.
Talking about
which was fantastic because they had you waited for a long time.
Went up the stairs, Tommy, remember?
3 hours.
3 hours.
3 hours.
That's right. So we've
all
waited
been there.
And do you remember there was somebody, you get photographs with somebody with fucking parakeets or something? They would bite you.
That would.
And you paid money.
They came from the zoo up the stair because they were on the parakeets.
And you know, I'm not contradicting you, but I'm just thinking, do you remember there was another zoo called Oswald Street?
Oh, yes,
Zoo?
Oswald Street
That isn't
Zoo.
what you're thinking
Wilson's
of, no?
Zoo. They were called Wilson's.
But that's a separate thing.
Oh, entirely
Right, okay.
different. No, the old lion that was in there. I
So you
felt
used to
sorry
piss on
for
people?
it. No. Oh, that old lion. No, just lay there and look.
Bastards.
No, what are you doing here?
Probably got a big African accent.
No, that's a lie. Never. I was in it quite often. They also had. You walked in. They also had a small crocodile that never moved. And this, as you walked in, and it was it could have been plastic because I never ever saw it moving. You know, and over
Maybe
the years,
blink or something.
over the years, I think a wee kind of snottery bubble came for his nose one time in the water.
Just to prove it might have been a lie. Are we talking though about Lewis's zoo?
No, this is Oswald Street Zoo.
Right, so what about the Lewis's zoo then,
Lewis's zoo had as I say, I remember, because a monkey actually stole my skull cap. Tried to pull it through the netting.
Right.
No, that. They had monkeys and everything up on the top, and they had a children's hairdresser, right, with themed seats, right,
lovely.
on it, like Roy Rogers' horse, and things like that,
clever,
and a wee
isn't it?
spaceship, things like that you could sit on. Now, I never sat in them because we couldn't afford a haircut, right, but I knew they were there, and I never planked my bum in any of them. But I'm absolutely certain that if anybody sees this and it brings back some memories, they will know that this actually
was that on the same floor as the zoo then?
This would be probably the same floor as the zoo, I think.
And was there like lions and things, or was it
smaller animals? No,
right,
I think the monkeys and that. As I say, there was parrots. I think there was I'm sure there was a goat there,
and a couple of
and there would be rabbits and things like that.
Like a children's zoo, petting
more like
zoo
a petting zoo, but you weren't allowed to pet them. There wasn't such a thing as in Glasgow. They stole them all. Right, what we with this rabbit? Right, come on, get in the lift quick. No. Straight snowy, we're okay.
We made it snowy. We've escaped.
They've got to buy a rabbit in the Barras.
In that shop where the guy's selling the suits.
Buy a rabbit. No, we want a suit then.
That kind of brings me on to the kind of shops that there were in Glasgow at that time in the 70s. And I was talking about Fine Fair. As I thought that was one of the first supermarket style shops, and you said there was one in Kirkintilloch?
No, but I lived in Falkirk. There was a fine fair, but they were taken over, or they became Safeway.
They did, that's right. So was it a kind of supermarket
yes,
type of
as
shop?
I recall it was, aye. That was in the 70s.
So that was like going in and helping yourself
just as
and
now.
putting in a basket. Right.
As now. just a less modern version, but that's what it was.
So Fine Fair must have been kind of like the first.
First I remember.
One of the first like kind of supermarket type. Because prior to that, you would be the only kind of supermarket that I would think of in terms of selection would have been the Cooperative, because you would get butter and you get the butter pats. Remember, they sometimes make a wee thistle mark at the top of your butter if you wanted it, and cut the cheese with the cheese cutter things and all that, and you could get breakfast cereal and bread and all that kind of thing. So, but apart from that, the departmental stores were very, very popular in those days. And I remember my mum saying, somebody said, "Oh, we're going for shopping," and she said, shopping was one thing and messages were another. Shopping was going into the town, and messages was like groceries. Where are you going? Oh, we're going down to Argyll Street. Oh, no, we won't be going there. We just go to Sauchiehall Street. Because that was the place.
The same shops.
But, no, wasn't it?
Some of them were the same shops.
I'm going to tell you they were so different. You had Copeland and Lisle, Pettigrew and Stevens, Wiley and Lochheads, and Watt Brothers. Now, for me, they were all Sauchiehall Street, but right up to the very end of what is the end
Charing
of Sauchiehall
Cross.
Street? Right up. And there's a big Furrier's up there as well, a big Furrier's shop.
Well, I'll tell you another store that was there, and it was like, this was, Harrods, this was Fortnum and Masons in Glasgow. Trerons.
I was there. It's there. Trerons.
What were they? I remember the names. What were
was
they?
Trerons not Argyll Street though?
No, Sauchiehall Street, the very middle of, right in the middle, between Sauchiehall Street runs right through to, to the past the Charing Cross. But so if you take the Charing Cross and the sort of Renfield end, the street end of Sauchiehall Street, Trerons was right in the middle.
Was it mostly clothes, Tommy, Trerons?
No, that had everything in it.
I don't remember
China.
that at all.
No, people don't remember it. And the reason it was also, there was a place called the McClellan Galleries.
Yes,
which
yes.
in the middle of Trerons was a kind of arcade place.
I remember it.
And you walked up the stairs into the McClellan Galleries that were above
and it
there.
was an actual galleries.
It was a galleries where it was a venue which
was it?
presented things there. I went to see. I just kind of goes back to the music thing, because I went to see a drum clinic given by a fantastic drummer called Joe Morello, who was the drummer of the Dave Brubeck Five. The Dave Brubeck,
I know the name
who
Dave
had Take
Morello.
Five.
Oh yeah,
jazz.
yeah.
Joe Morello was the drummer, and with Dave Brubeck, it was a quartet, and he was doing a drum clinic
In
for
McClellan
Ludwig
Galleries.
Drums there, and.
But there was like pictures and things, wasn't there, Tommy? It was like a proper gallery, wasn't
There
it?
would be a gallery. Yes, it
I
was
remember.
there is things in frames. I don't. But
I'm trying to think if you paid to get in, or if it was a free thing.
you
or
did.
not.
It was. It could be paid if there was something on. No, they
was a strange
presented.
place to have
it was
it.
a venue which various people used it for various things.
Right.
Like, for example, obviously there must have been a present. That was the only time I was actually in it, was to go and see this drummer. I was never in it before that, because it was out with where I would ever go. It was like walking into Fortnum and Masons, right?
Yeah.
It was. I've got funnily enough, I was talking about my pals who were apprentices, and the one that was a motor mechanic, I lost touch with him, and I was as a commie chef working in I was a wee bit further up my career then, and I'm walking along Sauchiehall Street in the afternoon, and there was this car outside Trerons, and it was a kind of old, what you would call a shooting brake type car, with a
wood.
hood
The wood.
on it.
Oh,
The
a
hood was up,
Oh, a hood.
and there was the driver standing with the blooming spats,
Ooh.
the uniform with the buttons that go up to the shoulders, and the hat. Big Benny. Hello, Benny. What are you doing here? Because he was a motor mechanic last time I saw him. He was lady somebody's driver, chauffeur.
Nice.
She's in Trerons. I'm waiting on her.
Oh, lovely. Nice wee job. Of course, the kind of other side of the coin where the shops was concerned was this is the arrival of what every woman wants. Now, for women in particular, of course, there was a big men's department as well, and there's like all department stores. There was all sorts of stuff that you could buy apart from clothes. But that was a big thing for women because now you really had access to very stylish clothes at very, very cheap prices. So that was like the Primark of its day, if you like, and also C&A. So our mum was a big C&A fan from very, very, very early on, and did all my dad's shopping. So she bought all of his jackets, all of his trousers, and she would be saying to a man, "What size are you?" If he just happened to innocently just shopping.
You'll do.
What size are you? A 49. Put that jacket on. Walk up there. Walk back, put your hands in the pockets. So I don't think my dad was ever in C&A. He knew about it. And of course then there was Man at C&A. Man at C&A as well.
And Kanda Casuals, that was another, they'd this line called...
Was that their
Kanda?
Kanda?
C&A. Kanda Casuals.
Brilliant.
Do you know C&A is still going in Europe?
Yes.
I was in the one in Paris and the one in Munich.
Aye.
I thought, they chucked it in the UK. I thought it was going completely, and I remember walking by, that's a C&A, and I'd seen other ones as well.
I'd have to go in it. I'd have had to go in it just to see. My mother was fanatical, but I remember the staff being particularly well trained and very kind, and I'll put that aside for you, Margaret, Nothing underhand, but just really helpful and well trained. And so were the staff in Lewis's as well, I have to say. Really, really well trained. And of course, for us women, there was Chelsea Girl, Bus Stop, Sasha, and I mean 3 big shoe shops: Dolces, Saxon, and Freeman Hardy Willis.
There was one called Mansfield as well.
Mansfield.
Bata.
Barras
and Bata. B-A-T-A, Bata.
I remember that one.
Okay. I don't know if I remember that.
Was there. That could have gone by the 70s. Could have gone by the 70s.
I had to say, because I think I'm likely to forget, what was it? We were talking about clothes. Remember the guy that had been the Pathfinders? Was it Norrie something his name was? And he had suits just off Ingram Street.
Stubbs.
Was it Stubbs it was called?
Stubbs, aye.
What was his name?
Norrie McLean.
And he was going great for a while, wasn't he?
He was great.
I read that we knew had suits with him.
I'd a Stubbs. Well, the whole band had a Stubbs suit. I remember with different coloured corduroy suits.
Wow.
We had the Stubbs.
That must have
Norrie
looked like
McLean.
something.
I think it was actually, it wasn't a Path, I think it was a Poets he was in.
Was it?
I think it was, but as I say, I tell, he made me a pair, this is funny, made me a pair of trousers, right? Leather trousers.
Yeah, that was a real thing then.
I designed my leather trousers, right? Yeah, I was always quite into. I liked Indians, the American Indians, right? I used to. Stewart loves the history, and I used to read a bit about Indians, right? And I designed these. Indian? No, if you saw them, remember they used to have
Don't
fringes.
Tell me fringes. I knew it was leading up to that.
Right.
I knew that was a lead up to fringes.
I thought of fringes, but then I thought, no. So it had, I made it was like the pocket was like a small saddle bag. Like can you imagine a handbag sewn onto the front of your hip?
Prefer not to, Tommy, but anyway.
Well, that's not just use your imagination.
Right, okay, stay with it, Christine.
And then the fringes, there was a disc with fringes coming down from that, right, down to the bottom, right. So I've got these leather trousers on. I go and collect them.
Right.
I'm going to this gig, right. So I'm going to this gig, leather trousers, heads up goes to the gig. puts the leather trousers on, right? No, and they're a bit stiff, you know, because, jeez, Anyway, as you know, Alec Boland's the roadie. He's my roadie, right? He's got the, so they say, right, so is that way the dog watch with Kathy?
Oh yeah.
Right, I'm playing away. And I always remember it's Hamilton Trocadero. Right, we go in there. I goes onto the drum kit.
Together?
I go to the drum kit and try and sit down. Impossible. I'm stuck. It was the wrong it wasn't soft leather. It was some
leather.
old couch.
I was going to say something about a settee or something like that.
It was an old couch leather that he'd made these trousers
or a dead elephant or something.
And I couldn't sit down in them.
God.
Right, there was I was walking like a blooming robot towards. I knew I was having problems right away, but I says
Did you take
sure
them
once
back
I
to
me.
it?
So I no, I didn't have the bottle to take them
Yeah.
back. I should have taken them back and said, no, these are rubbish. You should give me.
Because you
the
wouldn't be able
leather.
to wear them,
But
could you?
no, I was okay. I never ever
you
wore
could
them
pose
again.
in them. You could stand
To
at a
sit
bar.
down.
You could stand at a bar like that.
As long as I was walking somewhere, you know, I would wear
Don't
them.
stop! I can't stop for a pint. No, I've got to keep walking.
Stumps me, but he made, as I say, he made all the bands and all the suits for bands and he had a really great going business.
I remember the name Stubbs. I don't remember
I'd
the
forgotten
guy's
about it
name, but I
completely.
remember
He was a dead
the
nice
brand.
guy.
Yeah,
Aye. Aye.
So, guys, I'm going to finish up this episode just by quickly talking about the kind of cars that people were driving at the time. So, Ford seems to come out on the top with the Cortina Mark II. Stuart, you were explaining to me.
No. It was a story about a Mark II Cortina.
Oh,
but
right,
it was
okay.
a Cortina. Just there was ended up about 4 or 5 of them even.
With different marks.
Tommy had a huge one.
Well, that big canary yellow.
Estate.
Cortina
It's a monster.
estate.
You could have a party in it.
So you were a fan of the Cortina then?
Bright yellow.
Oh.
Oh, it was beautiful. It was a
bright
big
yellow.
monster.
Oh, it was just...
And of course, you can't mention coat. You can't mention that without mentioning a car coat. Because I remember the car coats were the de rigueur. My mother says, we'll have to go to the CNA and get your dad a car coat.
I got one as well. She got
Nothing
me
else
one.
for it.
Did you wear it?
Aye, it was brilliant.
Oh, you
It
would
was
have to
absolutely
wear
beautiful.
it.
No,
Crikey,
no,
there was
no,
no-
no. I
Thick
was-
black elephant cord with a big furry collar. I thought I looked great.
car coat.
I looked like a
Thank
dick.
God, probably. Thank God we didn't know. So listen, Tommy, thank you so much for being with us for these 2 episodes.
been
It's
great.
been
Thoroughly
really
enjoyed
great
it.
having you, and thank you so much for your insight and for sharing all that. And we'll wait and see what the public have to say. So thanks very much, everybody, for joining us today. Thanks, Stuart, for
Pleasure
being
being
here.
here as ever.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. Thanks for your company, and don't forget you can find us on Facebook, and you can find our podcast downloaded on Spotify and YouTube. Thanks again, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Aye.